You have to do your breathing techniques just outside of the mic area, so then you're not breathing on the mic. Or breathe below the mic. If you did it like this, then maybe it'd be
I just
like
need to
below
mute
the
it.
mic. Yeah. Well,
Every time I breathe.
Welcome back. I've decided not to put the mic right in front of my mouth this time. And hopefully we've got the best quality that you'll ever see and hear at the same time, because both Tom and I have finally figured out how to like correct the mistakes that have been happening.
Is it
not
linked
because
to your
of our fault,
iPhone?
but- Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So
I think 'cause it's
hopefully
streaming, it's not as clear, but I'm sure on the download it will be.
Yeah, because I think I've been having like internet connections and so forth. So, right, Tom, your hot take.
Hot take is trying to do what's on my heart and seeing the fruits of it. So I've always had this thought that of just helping people. And I think exercising that through, I think I've tried to do it in various ways of like mentoring or serving, like helping out at different volunteer stuff. I can never quite get the right amount of scratch to my itch. Let's just say that. It's always either I'm overcommitting or overdoing it, or I'm getting burnt out and bored. But I think the last couple of weeks, I'm sort of trying to challenge myself to be a bit more, I guess, sustainable in helping people out. And I guess I'll give a couple of examples. It's like I've offered a guy that I know 6 free coaching sessions, 6 hours long. We can spread them over days. We can have them half an hour long. We can have them an hour and a half. And I literally had an hour and a half conversation with him before Christmas. And it was talking about what does freedom look like for him. So he's someone in his, hopefully he's not listening because I don't know his age, in his 50s. And he feels like he's still got a lot to give. He's in, I won't bother saying industry, but he's in the business world anyway.
He's in the business.
He's middle management by the sounds of it. So not like CEO level, but not like working on the ground. So like in between that. So it's really interesting chatting through him, chatting through his experiences. I found out that he's been made redundant twice. So actually when I was chatting to him, because there was a lot of lack of communication, we were talking about how it's interesting how your past can fill in the gaps, or your inner voice can fill in the gaps.
Which is the communication of the boss or the bosses communicating about the redundancies, right?
Or not even communicating about the redundancies, it's communicating that you're safe in your role. Because if there's redundancies or not, that's to some extent irrelevant. It's more the safety element of you are safe. If anything happened, you're on the right side to be on. Obviously, there's a sadness of if, let's say, you're letting go of your friends and that type of stuff, but assume that you're not letting go of your friends. The redundancy doesn't matter. It's more the safety of, are you getting redundant? Because it's like, pretend that it's the animal kingdom. It's basically like, is the lion going to attack you? That's all you care about in that moment. And if it's a no, you're like, cool, like chill and calm down. So it's really interesting. I had an hour and a half conversation, went on loads of different topics. And it's really fascinating because just before the chat, I was like, I don't want to do this. I always, regardless of how much experience, how good energy I've got or bad energy, I always have this social anxiety straight before it / nervousness of like, I don't want to do this at all. Why am I doing this? And I guess the thought that I won't be impactful. So it's really good to, I guess, walk through that to build your confidence back up. Not like you'll ever get confidence, but I guess it's like more of a knowledge that you will share something useful, even though it might not be something new. Sometimes just by bringing a new, fresh voice into someone's life or a fresh perspective that maybe they would have thought of on a good day, but they're not having good days at the moment. That is good enough as being helpful. So yeah, I think it's exercising that through coaching people. And also I've been working with a charity / church in the local area. So I've helped them out so they're in a transitional period. So new leadership are getting put into place in the next, I think it was 18 months, about 6 months ago. So I think they're in their last year now or so, roughly. And it's fascinating because basically the people that are taken on don't know where the church is financially, this charity. So they rent out a lot of their rooms. They do a lot of conferencing. They do a lot of community work. They're very outwardly looking, which is great, and community focused. But finance is a big part. And basically one of the leaders that are stepping down is dealing a lot with finances. So it's fascinating being part of that journey to take on all the information whilst they are still in power, but then help them come up with their new ideas. Because I think any leader stepping into a role, business, charity, church, whatever, you always need to put your stint on it. You can't mimic what other people have done. So it's interesting. I was listening to a podcast of, I've literally blanked out his name, David Moyes stepping into Sir Alex Ferguson's shoes, basically, at Man United. And he was all I was going to do is basically just not touch anything because it's a system that works. Why would I change it? But now in his maturity, looking back, 8+ years ago or however many long, he was like, actually, I probably should have asked more questions and I probably should have brought my flavor to it, because the reason why they picked me was because what I bring to the table, not the fact that I'm just a yes man going to carry on the legacy that you can't implement, because there's a massive change within manager and the CEO leaving as well. So going back to the Church of Charity, so I got them to look at their budget, what's the income, outgoings, and in that process, we've not finished the whole process. So they're still writing it down, because I've tried to take a more digital. There is physical at the moment, so it takes time, and obviously they're busy with loads of stuff, so it's a long transition. But during that time, they've recognized that they've got one major, I guess, client that rents out a lot of their office space, that were thinking of moving soon. But then they've realized they have basically a church office that is quite big, and a storage area that they can probably get away with moving stuff around and not using, because a lot of the time they work off their laptops. They could technically work from anywhere. So why not offer it as part of a package of, these are the main money coming into the church to bless the community. How can we work with them by negotiating of, if you can have those 2 extra spaces, is that enough? Because they were outgrowing the space that they had. So in the meantime, so I've chatted with them, and it's really interesting to find out that is the case, and they've signed a lease and got more money for it. So not only that they've secured a 18 months lease, so it gives a bit more of a runway for that transition of leadership. Actually, the new leader not only now is in a more stronger place before he's even took over, but he's fleshing out a new idea of potentially buying / leasing a property in our local area. So I'm based in Flint in North Wales, to create a wellbeing centre. And he was like, anything can help either the mums that are dropping off their kids and don't know what to do for the rest of the day, or people that can't afford the gym or are struggling to eat healthy, like to tackle people's finances. Like, actually, there's a lot of support out there for people that are homeless or in supported homes. But now it's attacking that, the sort of, you got the rich and then you got the homeless, and then like the gap in between that they're getting sort of hacked at the most. So it's sort of creating space for them, I guess, just to be their best selves, by creating free space for either community to help or the church to step up to run, either if it's fitness classes or finance sort of advice and stuff,
seminars
like that.
Or workshops.
Seminars, yeah. So it's really exciting starting the adventure of going into church, taking numbers, feeling like, what am I going to bring to the table, or having a chat one-to-one with this guy going, I've got nothing to share, to then round 2, okay, I've had an input, I've wandered away, I've come back, I've had a bit of a break over Christmas, jumping into, right, let's kick on, and seeing a massive shift in both of those areas is really engaging and exciting. to see that, oh, you do have something to bring to the table. And that's like just a passion that's like, I think the passion is outweighing the stress or the anxiety or the worry of what that might look like, which is really exciting, because I think in the seasons that I've had, I think through COVID, being in a different job, being in the supported housing area, I think that stripped away a lot of my confidence and I guess questioned my passion, because I was helping out 50% of people that genuinely wanted help, and I was helping and they were moving forward. And probably 50%, if not actually probably more than 50%, that is like, didn't want your help, even though you saw that they needed your help. So it really challenged me on who do I want to help out with? Because actually going, oh, I want to help out the homeless. Well, what if they don't want to be helped? Maybe they like the fact that they're living out of a tent because they don't want to pay council tax, because that stresses them out, the thought of paying £140 a month or whatever council tax for money that they don't have. So it's really interesting of going, actually it sort of challenged me to, I guess, narrow down into find like having a filter system to be like, who can I help and who do I want to help? And it's finding those people, and it's working with what works with me. So we've only got one car. We don't have two. So it's going, okay, let's just do phone calls. Like if getting to a location is faffy, it's like if looking right on Zoom is like a notch of barrier for you to stop yourself from doing it. It's like, cool, let's just go back to basics. Let's just have a phone call. Let's aim to have because I think the first chat was actually, let's aim to have a 30-minute chat, like super low bar. We end up chatting for an hour and a half. And that's the thing, is like even fleshing out different ideas with that church/charity is like, I've just been sending them voice notes, because I've recognized, like being dyslexic, I find it really hard to message because I'm overthinking and making sure I've done the correct wording. And then I basically lose the enthusiasm in the process of trying to be correct. So now trying to just do voice notes. And actually it was really interesting, because one of the guys was like, well, I never really voice note, but actually it's really useful because it meant that I could listen to your voice note different times of his week to process what I was trying to say and to think about how he can input. So it's really interesting going, actually, you're, I guess, giving permission. I was going to say authority, but I guess authority as well, but permission for people to voice note you, because maybe that might be their way of doing it, but they're used to sending emails and text and so on. So yeah, so I guess it's letting your passion outweigh your anxiety. Boom, boom, boom.
Wow.
Go.
What to unpack? That was good.
I think like a 30-minute monologue. Like, goodbye, guys.
Oh, yeah, that's it. You're out now. Don't die on me now. You're giving your last breath. I think all of that is super interesting. It comes down to ultimately having a couple of conversations, right? Allowing yourself to have a couple of conversations. When we talk about mentoring or coaching, just for like caveating what we mean by the differences, I think for me, I've always saw myself as a mentor, because it's easier to use my own experience to kind of help someone, rather than a coach, which will typically will use experience, but might give you like some mental kind of like model or something to use, and they might not have necessarily been in the same industry or kind of like mimicked what you've got in an experience wise. So I think it's really cool that you're doing this, pushing yourself, speaking to people that on paper would be outside of your comfort zone, but match up to actually some of your experience, and unfortunately like negative experiences with redundancy type stuff. So I think that's really encouraging. And I hope that anybody that's like thinking about, if you get stuck in your own head, all it needs typically is like one conversation to just let it out. Somebody to be like, just do less, or have you thought about this? Or have you thought about simplifying, or whatever it is, to then go away, process it, and then to have a second conversation that's like, yeah, that's really helped me. I'm now over here. And I think for the times that I've done mentoring sessions, I've also done like, hey, free mentoring sessions, and literally after 2 sessions, you've kind of like give them the next kind of like bit of energy to carry on the race, right? Because that's all we need is leak out that 10-20%, give us that like next chess move, and then we can solve the rest of it ourselves. So I think in life, don't be afraid, even if you're just going to have 2 conversations, right? Sometimes all you need is 1 conversation to unlock your brain to then get to the next level. And then you're fine because you're processing a lot along the way. And I think the charity stuff is fascinating. Like knowing who your audience is fascinating. It's good that you're allowed to prototype and experiment and try, because you've had plenty of experience in the past doing it. So it's good to like carry on prototyping and trying things and seeing if things fit, yes or no. I think reflecting on stuff that's happened for us this week, we've had a really good conversation. So you might remember back when I was saying about there's a pub in Colwyn Bay that's gone bust, and there's an organization called Together for Colwyn Bay. They've had a bunch of lottery funding because that particular Glyn Ward, that particular area is like the least lottery funded. I don't know if that was correct, but like the place that requests the least amount of funding from the lottery organization. So they've decided to get some funding for that. And they've been trying to buy a building for 5 years. Now, what was interesting, Tom and I were on the conversation. We're like ideas people. We're not there to implement it, but they were like, oh yeah, we'd love ideas because we're not business orientated, but we're on the ground. So it was really, really cool, that conversation, just again to like unblock. And what they've been doing is they really want to buy a property because that's kind of like a really good investment, a long-term kind of put a stamp. And I was like, the property that we were looking at had like a 1.2 million refurb that was needed. So I was like, why not just rent first, prototype the idea, and then later on you could figure out if you were even wanting to refurb a place. Because if you did 1.5 mil on a refurb, that's all your funding like disappearing just into maintenance of somewhere that you've not even started the business. So just kind of like throwing around ideas of one, simplifying something, and also driving to action. So having a conversation with somebody to be like, hey, why bother trying to find the perfect thing? Like a bad deal is better than no deal. And just that perspective, right? So really enjoyed having that conversation because basically it was creatives talking with creatives, which is good fun. And I thought that was really, really good. But all it needs is that one conversation, right? Like the other conversations we had was with a couple of guys running a big business, and that business is now funding some like smaller projects that they're trying to like prototype and get out the door and stuff. And I found like they're a little bit older than me and Tom. I found some of the conversation just like uniquely different. So I didn't enjoy it as much as the Colwyn Bay conversation because I think we just got them and they just got us, and there was a better buzz. But sometimes when there's, I guess, expectations of what's going to come out of a conversation and whatever, and just understanding context. So, for example, you know that we're working on a product called Insider, which is a music streaming platform, which is basically a Spotify meets Patreon type approach to give independent music artists more kind of control over their own income and better sustainability options for their income as well over typically just streaming on, let's say, Spotify. And they were saying, after I explained, hey, we're doing this book and hey, we're doing the services and stuff, they were like, you should basically focus on one thing and don't worry about the money. And I found it very difficult to focus on the money because let's say if right now I stop working and just focus on the product is making zero money right now. So how do I do that when I have a salary to pay and my own bills to pay? So I find sometimes you just need one conversation, but you need like the right kind of conversation with the right questions, the right understanding of context, and the right understanding of like what's going to be plausible for you. So I think it's a case of like really making sure that you find people that understand your situation and that are telling you stuff that's plausible. Although I do agree, on reflection of the conversation, I'm like, yes, maybe I should focus on one thing. What does that look like? Well, it basically fills me with absolute fear of quitting and canceling all my project work, all the contracts, and stopping those things to go 100% into product because product is currently zero. So what would that look like? That would massively induce a bunch of stress And I've basically tried to avoid that kind of stuff in the past by doing the most logical, like quote unquote safest next step, which is still a big step, but it's not like go to zero, you know? So I think it's like, it's really helpful to have those one conversations, to have those context pieces to give you the right advice. And sometimes it only needs one conversation or two conversations just to like unlock your brain, just to get you to the next level. Right. So.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one. And I think it's sometimes you just got to trust your gut. I think annoyingly, school trains you to think that people are older than you will give you the advice to get it right. It's like the teacher kid feel that sometimes you can get in a meeting when actually sometimes, I think, particularly in the business world, there's like segments of generations that sometimes you can't always pass down or pass up your knowledge, because someone at the start of the internet kicking off to someone now where there's so much competition on the internet that actually AI and VR and AI the kickoffs, unless you can transmit the early stages of the internet and transmit it elsewhere. Because actually, if someone's like, well, I made Google and then it's booming, let's say, well, if you made Google now, or whatever, you wouldn't be able to compete because you'd have to do way more work. It's like that. Have you ever seen that bell curve at all? Like the young adopters, basically the main flock of people, and then the late adapters.
Yeah.
And it's like that. Sometimes you get advice in the small bit and then you're trying to implement it in the big bit. And it's like, no, you have to either find another small bit or you need to recognize, oh, it was a small bit. And you're at the medium bit. So you need to find people of like, actually, you might just need to do stuff in a completely different way than you've ever done before, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But
I have found just even the principle of talking to people, like just talk to new people is a good principle to start. Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah. And I think it's liberating you. And this might not necessarily be everyone. It might be just people with less confidence or more anxiety. Maybe that's the people that I'm speaking to right now. But by going, actually, you might have the answer and it's okay. And your gut might go against someone that's got more money or more time or more experience or whatever. But there might be someone in your gut that's like, I trust my idea, or I know how to implement it. And it's one of those things. It's like, I guess what I've been doing with the charity and with the guy is going, it doesn't matter to some extent what is on your, let's say, your budget list. But as long as you've chosen for those items to be on your budget list, I'm okay with it. So if you've got, let's say, YouTube Premium on there, I don't mind that you're paying 10, 20 quid towards YouTube Premium. But if it's sitting on there because you signed up for it 5 years ago and you're not interested in it at all, either make the most of that money or delegate it, because actually you can invest it in stocks, or you can put it towards potentially getting a new phone because you're trying to get into videography to then go back to YouTube. Maybe you've stepped too far ahead. And I think it is that element of going, trusting your guns and doing your decision. Because if someone gives you advice and it doesn't sit well, you've got a choice to, I remember a good saying, like, you can be a bad copy of someone else, or you could just be yourself. It's way more said better than how I said it. You could either be you could either be yourself or a bad copy of someone else, or something along the lines of that. And I think it is that in those, I guess life is a bit like poker. You've got your own cards. You know what you're holding. Sometimes you can share, but you recognize actually everyone's got their own cards, that they might give you advice based off their cards or your cards, and you don't always know. So it's sort of learning, discernment, and I think through, like you said, meeting new people, because the more different variations of meeting people, you will start to clock what works for you and what doesn't, and find trends, and it might change in seasons.
Because I've always been trying to find this golden nugget of information which makes my life easier, which makes business easier. And somebody's going to tell me it. I just need to meet up with people and they'll say, oh yeah, this is the thing you're missing. So sometimes I've had conversations because like, this is the piece of business advice or business insight that you're missing. But then you realize actually you're not missing anything. It's just, you have to keep going. You have to keep going for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So over time, I've started to readjust to actually be like, you know what? I'm happy not speaking to people because there's this frustration that I keep on thinking that somebody else has the answer when really I should continue to trust in my own instinct and trust in the actions and the things that I'm doing are the right things. And yeah, sometimes people will come along and try to give you what give you what they think you want, right? Typically, when you come and meet somebody, they want to get a bunch of nuggets off you, right? A bunch of like insights, a bunch of one-liners, a bunch of tweetable like things that can be said or like earth-shattering moments. And sometimes it actually doesn't end up being like that. So yeah, is it a case of readjusting? I think for me, I'm at the stage where I'm basically speaking to people less in the sense of somebody's got an answer that I'm missing and just trusting my gut a little bit more that I am doing the right things because I checked last time and I am doing the right things, you know? Yeah. So it's always challenging, but you have to just keep on measuring, right? You have to keep on measuring and reflecting to figure out where you are. Are you at a stage where you're basically too much in your head and you definitely need somebody to just vent to and speak to get a bit of perspective? And the whole, like, rather than as society typically is the loudest noise, which is like, you should be doing more, you should be more impactful, you should be a nicer person. Like, actually, maybe it's about doing less, you know, and focusing on like a smaller holding rather than the big holding that you have. And then other times it might be that you're actually wanting external validation. There's this external answer. You're waiting for somebody to give you this golden nugget of information or the next step when really you know what the next step is. And it's just not trusting yourself to be like, you know what the next step is. Come on, you can do it. It's scary. So let's just figure out, if you know what the next step is, let's just figure out the least scary version of the next step for you. And I think it's about somebody being mature enough and being wise enough and being able to like, perceptive enough to be able to glean that off somebody and then, you know, bounce off them and reflect it. Because typically we know how therapy works. The therapist doesn't give you the answer. You come up with the answer, right? Over time. And you're helped to come up with the answer. And I believe that that's it. Like we're helped to come up with the answer when we're told the right things. For example, when I say do less rather than do more, you'll start to come up with the answer because you're getting clarity because it's not about doing more. Yeah. Although that's me not listening to my own advice sometimes as well. Because I like doing different things.
Interesting stuff. But yeah, what is our takeaways? If you want some coaching or mentoring, we are here.
So 2 things or 3 things. I'll say 2 things, 3 things, but I'll then add up more. One, we mentioned a couple of weeks ago that we're starting a newsletter called The Bottom Line. We want to give 2 points. So as you know, Tom and I are like 2 different sides. Yin and Yang is the white hoodie / grey hoodie and the black t-shirt over here. Tom is the saving money, cutting outgoings type approach. And I'm
cutting corners, huh?
not cutting corners. Well, if it means that you save money, cutting corners approach. And then I'm the making business growth, kind of like big picture type stuff. And what we want to do is put a piece of that into an email. So there'll be a bottom line. The bottom line email will have 2 parts. 1, a way to save money, and 1 to make money. And we're hoping to release it every week. Now, the funny thing is basically we've not kicked it off yet because we want people to subscribe. So if you go to readthebottomline.com, you'll be able to subscribe. And then as soon as we have enough subscribers, we'll actually start putting it together and start sending it out. Because again, prototype. Don't overstretch. So wait until you have people signed up. Yeah. So if you sign up,
getting the hype,
you'll get the bottom line sent to your inbox every week. And then the second thing is, as Tom was saying, like we're open to have conversations. Hopefully by now you kind of know that we're not douchebags. Well, maybe. And we're kind of nice people. We're approachable people and we like to have a laugh. and you kind of know what we're about and what we like to do and how we like to help. So if you were wanting to get in touch with that, that'd be great. And then Jingle January, we're probably saying too many things, but we still want more jingles to be submitted because currently the count is 0.
It's 1.
And is it? Oh, right. Oh, good. Is the form up now?
The form is up.
Oh, I stand corrected. So we have 1 jingle. Because I thought the form might not be.
Technically we do have 1 jingle, or technically 2 if you class my tester to make sure the form worked. But I deleted that one.
Okay, so you're in the game then if you've entered yourself as the jingler. So we've only got January. I think we've only got 1 week left, right? And then the week after will be the jingle that we select. The winner of the Jingle January will be chosen. And then we'll need to come up with the next competition of some sorts.
Yeah. Something that rhymes. I guess jingle was Jan, wasn't it? So something to rhyme with for February.
And
Fat
what
February.
we should do some...
who can gain the most weight?
We should do some Don't Be a Doorstop t-shirts. I mean, mugs is one thing, so I can't think of any other merch that people might want. But
I think that's March, isn't it? Merch March?
Merch March. Yeah, maybe Merch March can be like design like a Don't Be a Doorstop coaster or mouse mat or or t-shirt. Actually, it'd be cool to do a t-shirt because at least then it could be more sustainable because you will actually end up wearing a t-shirt rather than a coaster or a mouse mat or whatever. So
yeah.
And also, if this is the second video that you've listened to or watched and you've not subscribed, then please do. We're fine if this is your first one, so welcome. Hope you've enjoyed it. But if this is your second one, it's time to subscribe. It's time to commit. Hope you're enjoying it. And if you subscribe, we'll keep them coming. And until next time, keep
hammering those nails.
Yes. I was like, I thought you were going to do one word. If you did one word, I'd be like, keep hammering those. Keep.
I was going to say jingle those keys, but then I was like, that'll probably make no sense. But
jingle those nails. Yeah. Keep hammering those nails. Bye for now.
Bye.